Coming up on One Detroit. Have you ever heard of an aerophonist? Well, you'll meet one in today's show. Plus, the unique art of sketching fashion designs. Also ahead, how chamber musicians are connecting with their audiences during the pandemic. And then, the Activate Fund helps nonprofits meet their mission during these challenging times. I'm Will Glover, and it's all ahead on One Detroit.
Support for this program provided by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.
Hi and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Will Glover sitting in for Kirsten McDonald. We're entering the final stretch of summer and we've all had to get through the past few months without the usual concerts and art festivals due to the coronavirus. Well, that's where our show can help. We're giving you a dose of the arts and culture you've been missing all summer long. Coming up, Detroit has produced many talented musicians and we're going to introduce you to one of them. Meet aerophonist Ralph Jones. Plus, a look inside the world of fashion illustration. You'll see what it takes to make designs come alive on the pages of a magazine. Also ahead, the CEO of Chamber Music America had some advice for musicians as they wait out the pandemic. Then, COVID-19 has hit nonprofits hard. We'll hear how Co.act Detroit's Activate Fund is lending a hand, and check in with Detroit's Carr Center to see how this cultural hub is coping. And we'll wrap it up with an inspirational performance by a Detroit public school student. It's all ahead.
Can you tell us just a few of the people in your illustrious career that you played with or recorded with?
Well, I can start with the musicians from Detroit, because they nurtured me. They mentored me and they inspired me. And I could start with people like Sam Sanders, who was my saxophone teacher at the time. But there was people like Beans Bowles, Charles Moore, and all these, and there's Wendell Harrison, Hakeem Jami, Marcus Belgrave, of course. These were guys that saw enough of me to want to impart their knowledge and their patience. I should say that, patience with a young musician who was aspiring to be like they were. Ed Nuccelli hired me. He had the house band at the Elmwood Casino.
Legendary Elmwood Casino, yeah.
Legendary Elmwood Casino. And he hired me to play in the house band there. Charles Bowles was a member of the house band, and Danny Spencer and Ed Pickens. And they would bring people like, we got a chance to work with Ella Fitzgerald for 2 weeks, Lena Horne for 2 weeks, and they would always bring in great musicians to accompany them. Ella Fitzgerald had Tommy Flanagan, a Detroiter.
Wow.
And Freddie Waits before he had passed. Lena Horne had Gabor Szabo playing guitar with her, which was really, for my young, I guess I was 20, 21, it was mesmerizing.
Give us a little snapshot of what you did after you left Detroit.
So I went on and moved to Boston because I wanted to immerse myself. I was taking classes at New England Conservatory, playing around. I stayed in Boston for a year, came back to Detroit, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 1975. My motive was to make money playing in the studios because there were a lot of Detroit musicians that had moved to Los Angeles at that time. I kind of got into the studio scene doing sessions, but my thing has always been to be a performer. Later on, I went on the road with Norman Connors and my friend Billy McCoy, who is also from Detroit. And I played with Pharoah Sanders. He had, we did the Montreux Festival. We did a lot of things. Norman had some hit records at that time. So I did get a chance to make Los Angeles a home. While I was in Los Angeles, I went back and got my BA in ethnomusicology. Because of the musical group that we were involved with, Eternal Wind, which was Charles Moore, Adam Rudolph, Federico Ramos, we were all not only performers, but we were also deep researchers into the music and study. I was the first person at UCLA that they awarded a BA in ethnomusicology. And I came out, and I started teaching at, all levels. I went back to UCLA after 20 years, and I got my master's in African American Studies.
Do you think people understand and appreciate the contributions that the city has made to the music and Black arts culture in general?
Marty, there are people still in Detroit that are very, very aware of the cultural identity of Detroit and the great musicians that came out. The Detroit musicians, the level of musicians that was always in Detroit, and these musicians did not just come from CT or Cass Tech. Every public school had outstanding music departments. We did a tribute to Ken Cox a couple years ago at the Detroit Jazz Festival, and it was a big band, and I was the musical director for this. Everybody on that bandstand was a product of Detroit public schools. Racy Biggs, George Bohannon, Issa Abram Alim, who I've known since I was a teenager, playing percussion. Everybody on that bandstand, and it must have been 15 to 20 musicians, was a product of Detroit public schools.
Yeah.
It was historical.
Fashion illustration. Some consider it a lost art, especially after fashion photography became popular in the 1930s. But this form of art has been around for 500 years, and it gives artists a unique means to express themselves. Our friends at Detroit Performs caught up with fashion illustrator Nicole Jarecz to see how she expresses her creativity through sketching.
I think it was really the fashion industry that inspired me to do this. It's all about the clothes for me. Fashion illustration it's like a different form of expression than photography. You have a lot of fashion photography out there, but not a lot of fashion illustration. So it's just a different expression of the figure, a different expression of the wardrobe, the way the wardrobe moves. It's different than design. I'm not like designing the clothes. I'm just taking the photo or taking the person and transforming it into something new. Before photography, there was only illustrators illustrating these ideas for magazines, and then helping designers out as well, illustrating the figure, which was a very important part of like seeing the dress before the design was made. And then, you had the illustrators who were working for Vogue or WWD. There was a guy named René Gru, and he was one of my favorite illustrators, and he, kind of dominated that field. But unfortunately, once photography came, it was like a quick way to seize the moment, and it kind of took over illustration at the time. I think an illustration is more special than a photograph. I know a lot of talented photographers, but it's very straightforward. This is the image. With an illustration, you're taking an idea and recreating it into something new, something more magical. I really want to express a gesture with my fashion illustrations. It's more mesmerizing. It captures color and light and movement. That's what I want to capture with my illustrations. So sometimes I'll take a photo and I'll stylize it more. Everything is always changed up. It's never exactly the same as a photograph. I focus more on the clothing when I do the illustration. I really like couture gowns. Couture is like a high design, a way of sewing and intricate patterns. I like that it's telling a story in a way. And I just like the whole movement of the couture compared to a street style that you might see. For the mediums that I use, I play around with a lot of different things. I use colored pencil, ink, watercolor, gouache, acrylic, anything that I can find. I really like to mix it up and try different techniques. The type of clothing definitely makes a big impact on what I use for the medium. If I see a flowy dress, I might want to use watercolor because watercolor is very graceful and elegant. So I combine a lot of digital and traditional methods together, especially when I'm working for a client for a magazine. So I'll start the illustration off traditionally. I'll do like a pencil drawing and I'll do my watercolor and ink. Then I scan it in and I finish it up in Photoshop. And I might like do this several times to get the exact essence of what I'm trying to represent. I worked for a lot of different companies. In fashion, I've worked for Roger Vivier. It's like a couture shoe company in Paris. I've worked for Elle magazine and Glamour magazine, a lot of fashion magazines. My favorite project that I worked on was for Roger Vivier. I designed a bunch of greeting cards for him and his company, and that was a lot of fun. It was like a very luxurious brand to work for, and I'd really like to work for different brands like that. The daily struggle that I have is to be playful and precise at the same time. In my personal pieces, those are always the most fun for me, so I just try to be a little bit more free. I try to be a little bit more fluid in what I'm doing. I think people really respond well to my personal pieces, maybe because I am not overthinking them as much. I think that they really like the gesture that I put into my personal pieces and the color. And just the overall feeling is just more creating something that's beautiful for someone to put in their home or, you know, to show to their friends and family. I just want to share my work with people. Interacting with the community here is really important to me. I started seeing illustrators doing these sketching events a few years ago, you know, in bigger cities like New York and Paris, and I thought, I really want to bring that to Detroit. I want to do the same thing, and nobody else is doing it. So I contacted Neiman Marcus and Saks, and they were both on board, and they started having me regularly sketching. I bring all of my supplies with me, some paper, and then people just start coming up to my booth, and they see me sketching. I usually take a photo of them, or they'll stand in front of me and pose, and I'll do my sketch, and it's kind of like a takeaway gift for them for the evening. I sketch a little bit of everything. I sketch people dressed to the nines in gowns, and then I dress people in streetwear. My favorite is when people are really dressed up. It makes it a lot of fun. I like when people are dressed, you know, bold and with lots of color. It really gives me an opportunity to get out there, talk to people, interact with them, and just, you know, see what they respond to. It helps me to improve upon myself when I see if they react to one sketch compared to another sketch.
The COVID-19 pandemic is causing performance artists to get creative about how they're connecting with their audiences. We're seeing virtual performances and concerts being held on front porches. It's been especially difficult for larger musical groups such as chamber ensembles due to the restrictions placed on how many people can be in a room together. Aaron Dworkin of Arts Engines talked to the CEO of Chamber Music America, Margaret Lioi, about the challenges faced by musicians and what she's telling her members.
What is the landscape of chamber music, and what do you see really as the primary role for Chamber Music America and for you?
So the founder of Chamber Music America was a wonderful early musician named Michael Jaffe, who recently passed. And he was such a visionary because it was his idea not to limit what the style of chamber music was, but just to say it's really any music that is a small ensemble with one musician per part. From early music to the Western classical music, to Eastern classical music, and different elements, different instruments, to vocal music and percussion. So it's an incredibly diverse field in terms of the musical style.
Are you seeing any shifts or any trends that you think aren't just necessarily reactionary, but might actually lead to some evolutions of how chamber ensembles bring their art to their audiences or to their communities?
At the moment, everyone is in crisis. This is a crisis. It's a crisis, a health crisis, but also an economic crisis, and in some ways, a field crisis. So many of them, tried different platforms could they play together but not be together. And we have a group actually that's been doing, kind of experimenting and doing some work in that regard. So I think, artists are the most creative. They're just so creative. They're thinking about, okay, I have to connect with my audience, and how am I going to do that? And we have all seen people in their homes giving concerts and putting them, out there for people to enjoy. I think after the crisis comes the recovery period. And I think that some of the ideas that our members and others are coming up with in terms of maintaining a connection are going to be incorporated into the way we access music.
But are there three kind of things or concepts or aspects that you think these are critical to keep in mind as you are trying to further your opportunities that relate to chamber music?
I think the first thing is know what it is you want to do, because confusion and ambiguity are not your friends. You must know what it is you want to do. After you have articulated what that is, you have to make some sort of a tangible, tactical plan to get you where you want to go. You can't just wait for something to happen. You have to make that happen. And the third thing is utilize your mentors. There are wonderful people in our field who have already done what it is you want to do, but you have to be the one to ask them to help you, ask for their advice. One of the things that I wish I had known when I was a young musician was mentors don't seek you out and ask to be your mentor. You have to find the people that you think will be helpful to you and ask them. And I think that combination of knowing what you want to do, making a plan, and asking people to help you, that is a winning combination.
And finally, Co.act Detroit's helping nonprofits meet their missions by awarding $1.4 million in grants through its new Activate Fund. And for many nonprofits, it's helping them cope during the pandemic. One of the recipients is the Detroit Carr Center, which works to preserve African and African American cultural traditions. One Detroit's Chris Jordan sat down and spoke with Alva Ragsdale Jr. of the Carr Center and Alondra Bolger of Co.act Detroit.
Tell me a bit about what the concept for the Activate Fund was when it was created, and then how that mission has kind of shifted now throughout the pandemic.
We announced the Activate Fund opportunity initially at our launch in June of 2019. And really what this is about is twofold. It's about working with nonprofits to build their internal capacity, but it's also about increasing network connectivity and collaboration in the nonprofit community. And we see those two things as being important to the type of transformation we want to see in our communities. So when you think about the tens of thousands of nonprofits that exist in our community, and the amazing work that they do to stand in the gaps every day, we still recognize that we've got a long way to go until we see some of the change that we want to see, the types of thriving communities that we want to see. So that means that we have to have a really nuanced and holistic approach to how we address it. And so for us, we really had two components to the Activate Fund. The first were the capacity building nonprofit fundamental grants. Those were grants up to $50,000 for organizations to address a capacity building need within their org. And the second was a collaboration pilot. One of the things that we noticed in our space is that we had a number of groups that were working together, booking our space for meetings, and we wanted to know how we could help in other ways, right? And so we polled some of those groups and we heard things like, we need a neutral facilitator, we need someone to document the process, we need someone to help us address power dynamics around the table. And so that was the impetus for the collaboration pilot. The other thing that I'll lift up is that the Activate Fund was really inspired by the Building a Network report, which was completed by our partners at Nonprofit Enterprises at Work, the Michigan Nonprofit Association, Michigan Community Resources, and the University of Michigan School of Social Work. And that approach, that holistic approach, but also a focus on social and racial justice as a means for social transformation, really created the inspiration for the fund. And also, inspiration was important. We had partners from across the region who worked with us in the design of the fund, in the selection of the jurors, in the design of our evaluation process. So this has really been a collaborative effort.
And now, Oliver, the Carr Center is one of the nonprofits which was awarded one of the Activate Fund grants. What has the experience, what have the struggles of the Carr Center been during this pandemic, and what does a grant like this mean for your ability to weather the pandemic as an institution?
I think that what it gave us the chance to do was to pause for a moment and think. And it's interesting that the work and the funding that we're getting through this program is accelerating thinking that we had started. And we had a strategic plan and an evaluation of a plan that was done in 2019. And in the small print, it mentioned moving into the digital space. And it was really driven by our younger staff who really know and understand and are into the technology and the digital world. When COVID happened and we had to stop doing the live programming, our staff continued to work. And one of the things that we came to was the idea of the digital world and being able to do in-person performances and activities, live streaming of those same activities, and work that's on demand and available to the masses on demand. This grant happened and it afforded us the opportunity of outfitting the new performing studio within the Carr Center Contemporary, our space in the Park Shelton, to be able to put a broadcast studio into that space in both the gallery and the performance studio. And now with this grant, we can do live stream, and on demand. And we're ready, when the space opens up, we're ready to go thanks to this.
That'll do it for this week's edition of One Detroit's Arts and Culture Show. Check us out at onedetroitpbs.org. We're going to leave you with a performance by Detroit Public School student Elijah Anderson, who will be singing a song made popular by George Benson and later by Whitney Houston, The Greatest Love of All. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time.
I believe that children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone who fulfilled my needs. A lonely friend.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
Support for this program provided by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.